was watching this one podcast. It's his name's Russell Brand, and I'm
Love
not
Russell
sure of the
Brand.
lady he had on the show. She made this great point, and I loved it. And it was, this is kind of what, kind of paraphrase what she said, um, in the way I took it. So this will just be kind of a conversation of what was said by her.
Sure.
Most people have already heard about the millennials and that they don't value anything. This isn't every millennial, because I think we by definition fall into the millennial group. I don't know what year
I
it
do. I
ends.
think I'm the first year of it, and you just missed it. So you're whatever was before millennial, but really now the young groups are called Gen Z.
Okay.
But millennials and Gen Z, I think, are.
So from there to our present generations, whatever they're calling them, they tend to have this behavior of everything's disposable. And why would you want to hold on to that? Who cares if it's not broken? There's something newer. Let's just get what's newer. So we end up with this society of everything's dispensable. And when something is dispensable, you're equivalating it to extermination. And so I think in this belief system where we have now the society acting like this dispensable, I know this may be a little hard to follow. This generation then treats everything like trash, right? Okay. So then we have the situation we are in now in our society, and we'll just talk about COVID because that's the big thing in our planet right now with all across all countries, what I've observed. And it's people who, there's the divide, and you have people who are just like, if you don't get the COVID shot or vaccination, you basically should be dispensed of, because you don't care about human life.
You've lost a level of value to them, and
Yeah, you're
So-
you're dispensable. You
Yeah.
mean nothing to me now. And I think, to me, in my mind, this is like gives the clearest understanding of why these generations are functioning like this. Now, I'm not saying that there aren't people who are older than us, obviously, like in the boomerang generation. Not that they don't exist, because this exists through all generations. But I'm just saying that I feel like that it's such at a level that it is because this generation already has this dispensable view of everything, and everything's exterminated. So a life to them is just exterminate. You don't want to believe or follow my political beliefs? Exterminate you. We want you exterminated. We want you put in camps.
Yeah.
We want you. It's so Nazi-ish behavior. It's like, you don't have the blonde hair. You don't. You're not white, pale skin. Dispense of you. You're less than us now. And then they made all the Jewish people wear stars to identify that they aren't one of the pure ones, which is very similar to what the world is doing now. It's like, make sure you show us your vaccination card. That way we know you're pure. And I just feel like, to me, I just see such a correlation in that behavior of dispensable and extermination. Even people are exterminated. What do you think about that?
I think you can't deny, for someone who would listen to what you just said and say, no, there's so many problems with that. Well, surely you can look at it differently than the way that you took it.
Sure.
I understand that,
Of
but
course.
I would ask someone who is listening to that to try to grasp what it is that you were saying, and see if they could indeed see any correlation. And I don't know how you could look at that and not see a level of correlation. The most clear example, I believe, would be, like you said, a marking of the them versus the us, right? And the us is the vaccinated, and the them are the non-vaccinated. And while I'm not trying to say that it's at the level where obviously you would literally be exterminated or something like that if you're not vaccinated, obviously we're not there. The mindset is the same. Someone might say, or the mindset isn't the same per se, but there's there's a correlation of sorts there. One might say where it's obviously a difference of degrees. Someone might bring up the slippery slope, stating just because you see some degree of correlation in the them versus us in a very broad way of looking at it, doesn't mean that those who are vaccinated are going to turn on those who are, or vice versa, and try to exterminate them. Yes, obviously,
Right.
agreed.
Yes.
The idea is that the mindset is there, the frame of reference is there, and I get that. In my day-to-day, I don't run across anyone who states something about, oh, you're vaccinated, you're not vaccinated. Like, that question really isn't asked. Of course, I mean, if someone does ask me, I don't care. I tell them, no, I'm not. So, no. And for me, the reason at this point isn't scientific or anything like that. That's something we can go into at another time, but nonetheless, the correlation is there. And so, in terms of what you were saying, more to the point of what you were saying about dispensability equal extermination from one's life, I think what was trying to be portrayed, at least what I take, is that if you dispense of something out of your life, it is all but exterminated to you. It's no longer in your life,
It's
a part of
trash.
your life. It's
Yeah.
trash. It's no longer going to affect you in any way, shape, or form. That is, in my opinion, a dangerous precedent to set and to affirm and continue to reaffirm in a child or a young person's mindset,
Because it becomes
because
a
it
norm.
becomes a norm. And while there's obviously a reasonable individual can make a distinction between getting rid of a phone and getting rid of a human, the fact is that the precedent's there and affirmed and then reaffirmed time after time. We have, in large part, in America, I can speak to, at least become a culture that will dispense of things when they're done with it. And in our case, like, we might give things away to Goodwill or something like that, in the hopes of
Someone else
getting, and that's different. I'm
Right.
talking about just trashing something.
Yeah, exactly.
So, just trashing
Same.
something to get it out of your life, it's a dangerous precedent to set. We just have so much clutter in our life this day and age. So, obviously, we can't hold on to everything, but it would be nice if things were less dispensable and we looked more towards keeping them
Okay.
and fixing them.
So to move that past, like you were saying, people are like, oh, well, yeah, we can see a big difference between a human life and
Yeah.
a phone.
Yeah.
So let's just move away from the actual object
Sure.
and give an example. So we have a farmer here who farms, and there is actually seed that's patent seed. You can't use it unless you have been allowed to, but you have to purchase that allowance. And so, I remember this case. And so, this seed, by nature, the wind blew it into this other farmer's property, and it took root and grew itself there. And that company came along and was like, you don't have the right to use that seed. And they're like, we didn't plant it there. Like, that was an act of nature. And took them to court, and, beat this farmer in court, obviously. They're like, you were growing that on your property. And it's like, well, I didn't put it there. They're like, doesn't matter. You didn't have right to it. And, and they won. And so to me, it's just like, okay, well, if you take away this man's livelihood and he then results in the loss of work, he lost his farm, he lost everything. I don't know what happens with this guy, but I'm just moving it on. So let's just say, as a result of that, this guy ends up killing himself, and they, as in the ones who own the right to use this seed, just like, well, it was ours. So we have our society now where they have the thinking, you're not an essential worker.
Mm.
You don't need to be going to work. That's the end of it.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a lot of people's businesses shutting down. They're like, well, that was my livelihood.
Yeah.
That's how I made my living in my life. That's how
Right.
I supported my family. That's how I paid
Yeah.
for, you've
That shit was essential to me.
It was very essential. It was essential to keep your kids fed. It was essential to keep your lights on. But to whatever little game the elites wanted to play and say, that's not essential, that's
Right.
essential, that, oh, well, I'll go behind doors and you need to go open your business because I want to buy a piece of that jewelry.
Yeah.
And, bring it to me. And, all these little games. You then take away someone's ability to make a living,
Mm-hmm.
and they end up killing themselves. You then made that person, you extinguished them
Mm-hmm.
with those beliefs.
Mm-hmm. I see what you mean. I see the line you're drawing.
And that's more, again, of this, it's not useful to me, so I will discard it. It's trash.
Yeah.
But to me, I find that as, like, I'm no attorney, and I don't know, but I'm sure you could find an attorney who could read the law and tell you, like, we could sue for that. Because you, as a result of your recklessness, this person lost their life.
Mm-hmm.
This was the direct cause to that.
Mm-hmm. I see what you mean, and that's a very poignant. And again, I would just urge someone who's listening to think into that, because while there's multiple different ways that one could think of it, the way that you described it, the way that you're thinking of it, is certainly one of those ways, and it's there. I mean, it is interesting that they did draw the line between essential and non-essential. Mm-hmm. I think it's interesting that you couldn't shut down strip clubs, but you could shut down church services. And not going into the religiosity of that or the constitutionality of that and all that, just laying that all aside and just taking a look at it, from the outside. Being like, those people over there sing together, these people over here rub their bodies on each other, but one's allowed to keep going and the other's not. You know what I mean? Just looking from the outside,
Yes,
like,
absolutely.
what the, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It got stupid there. And my rule of thumb is, if there's a quote unquote pandemic and you have to tell people to stay inside and you have to tell them that,
Mm-hmm.
then you're going to have to let that quote unquote pandemic just play out.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
When people are getting sick to the point where, like, I'm not going out.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy out there. It is better that I don't go out
Mm-hmm.
and don't risk getting sick, because of that painful, whatever it is, sickness and possibility of death. No way. That's when you can tell, like, yeah, there's like real deal stuff going here. But if I have to go get tested for some shit time and time again,
Right.
you know what I mean?
Or
To see if I have this quote unquote
deadly
world-killing virus, you know what I mean?
With that exact thing, it's like, it should be your choice if you want to have your business open or not.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're like, hey, do you want to chance all these people with this virus coming into your business?
Right.
That's up to you.
Right.
You can close it or you can
Right.
keep it open.
Right.
That should be your choice, man.
Yeah. The sick stay home and the well can go out. And if they're like, no, I'm not even going to chance that, well, then stay home.
You still have the choice to have your business open or not.
Well, yeah.
Like, close it if you want to close it.
Yeah.
If you're terrified, just can close
Yeah.
it. We're not going to get mad if you want to close
Right.
your business. Close it.
Right.
But there are people who make their living off of this.
Yeah.
And some will be like, well, yeah, that's why they have signs saying you have to be vaccinated. Hey, if that's your business and you want the person that shops at your establishment or does business with you to be vaccinated, that's your choice. It's your business.
Yeah.
But to require it,
Yeah. You mean from a
absolutely not.
government level, yeah, to
from a
require
government,
it?
it's like, absolutely
Yeah, because I'm
not.
all for it. If it's your house and you don't want someone who's not been vaccinated in your house, I support the shit out of that.
Yeah, go for it.
100%. That's your home, man. Like,
Yeah.
you get to run that how you want.
Absolutely.
Your business, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
If you're like, listen, you got to be vaccinated coming here because we're not trying to spread this shit further or whatever. 100%, even though the vaccine doesn't, stop spread, but whatever.
Right. Won't even go there.
Yeah, we don't even need to go there on this. But let's just say it did, for shits and grins. Okay, then I get it. I'm on board with that. But yeah, for the government to say, here's what's going to happen for your safety.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The few who are in the positions of putting into place these restrictions and shutdowns and things like that, and for those who are further into positions in those positions to continue that to the local level, like here where we're at, the governmental and even they're the ones. It's the very few. You know what I mean? And I just can't believe we got to the place where we're at, but it really has been an eye opener in terms of if you can scare people, how much liberty you can take from them. And further, and this is the important part.
Absolutely.
If you can scare people, the amount of liberty that you can take from them is staggering. But when you get those same people to turn on those who fight against that extinguishment of their liberty, when you get the people, quote unquote, on your side to reinforce your fearful mandates, your mandates based on fear, that's where it gets real. That's where it gets real. Because the threat in America isn't the government. It truly isn't. The threat in America are the people. And whichever way the people determine to go is the way in which the nation goes. And so when the government passes this stuff down and the people grab hold of it and start to self-reinforce it, that's when it's dangerous. That's when it's real dangerous. And then further perpetuate the them-us mentality. That's when it's dangerous. And it's so dangerous in America because we're all so well armed. That's why it's so dangerous. So
dangerous. I see it as more of a. I'm so thankful. I'm so thankful we're well armed.
Yeah.
So thankful because I see how Australia's being treated and what they're doing in Canada to citizens, and it's just like, oh my gosh, you just like feel really sad for them.
Again, what the law enforcement and stuff does, because they're like bound, I should say, to do that which is passed down to them via orders. They're set up to do that, right? But when the people who are free start to reinforce the bullshit too, that's when I pay attention, and that shit is happening at large. And where it happens more often than not is in the minds and the mindsets and the groups who are very trusting of the government.
Yes.
A healthy distrust of your government, everyone's government, is essential to liberty. 100% essential. Go along with what they're saying until you're like, whoa, what's going on here? Then take a look, and if it's worth it, resist it.
Right.
And them telling me that I'm going to inject something into my body, when I was in the military and they said you're going to do that, I didn't have the right to say no.
Right. You signed.
I didn't have the right.
Right.
I mean, I could. I would have been disciplined, but that's because I didn't have the right to refuse it.
Right.
I'm not in the military, and my allegiance isn't to the orders of someone above me now. My allegiance is to the Constitution, ultimately to freedom and liberty.
Right. Agreed.
So with that in mind, when someone tells me I'm going to inject something in my body, but I'm willing to listen to reason and everything, but you're going to have to remove the mandate first that you will get vaccinated or else I will not get vaccinated on that basis alone.
Right.
Because I will not submit to them taking away my bodily autonomy and liberty.
And I think making a mandate, you just created more
more
division.
Trouble. Yes,
more.
Exactly.
Because now you had people who were willing to wait until there was more test time or see what was going to happen. And now you put a lot of people into a position and it's like, well, now I'm just not going to do it.
Right.
Because you're not going to tell me what to do.
Right, because
I'm not saying they're wrong. I'm just saying this is what you're backing people against a wall.
Yeah. And you're forcing them to choose one way or the other. Whereas before, you could continue on with just the scientific data.
Yeah.
And I get it. At this point, was it 200 million people around the planet or something have been injected and vaccinated and everything. And yeah, for the most, you don't just see 1 out of 2 people, 1 out of 5 people just dropping dead.
Right.
You see side effects and all that. That is to be expected.
Yes.
That's to be expected. Side effects are going to happen. When they try to cover that up, that is ridiculous. Because
Yeah.
side effects are going to happen when you inject a chemical cocktail into a broad swath of humanity. It's going
Right.
to happen. So
Absolutely.
they should have owned that.
Yeah.
They should have owned, but they didn't. They tried to hide it
And still.
and still try to hide it.
Yeah,
So they should have
and
just
it's
owned
just-
that.
it's
so
like just digging
let me
it
go ahead and
deeper.
let me go ahead and forgive that one, and then just continue on with the scientific research. And here's what we think, and here's what we know, and here's what the data shows, et cetera, et cetera. Man, I'd already got my vaccination, but then when they're like, "No, you're gonna do it or else," I'm like, "All right, come make." What are you gonna do? Nothing. And the reason why I can say that shit is because we have a Second Amendment. Remember, the Second Amendment, as Dave Chappelle says, is just in case that first one doesn't work out. He said that so brilliantly. Government exists to protect our freedoms, to protect our liberty. They should be the one protecting us against those who would say, we'll get vaccinated. They should be the ones saying, no, no, no.
Yeah.
Unconstitutional. You can't do that.
Right.
But they're not. They've
Right.
made themselves the Leviathan, and so they're going to have to deal with that until they unmake themselves the Leviathan. So that's where we're at. I'm not a revolutionary or anti-government by any means, but I am anti-bullshit government, and that's bullshit.
Yeah.
You know, especially when there's a 99.5% survival rate. You know,
Right. Absolutely.
if there was a 50%, you wouldn't have to tell me to be vaccinated. I'd be the first one in line.
You're right.
You know, I have a better chance if you just shove me full of that shit.
Right,
We'll
absolutely.
just ride out the
Agreed.
chances. But when I have a 99.5% chance of surviving it without any injection into my body, I don't know what you're putting in there. You know what I mean?
Right.
I'm going to take my chances with it. Those are good odds.
And actually, like I really didn't expect this conversation to go COVID wise.
Yeah, we don't
but
even
of
talk about
course-
this really anymore.
Oh
but
my gosh. But it's another problem I have is with that. Gosh, I really don't want stupid COVID. But another problem I have too is just like, hey, we're just trying to find out what's going to happen here. And I give this example because, different people take different medications for different reasons.
Yeah.
And like when I was pregnant, I had to be careful what was put into my body, obviously, because I had a growing body, growing human body inside of me, and any extra chemical I inject into my body or take, fluid, will affect that fetus or has the possibility to affect the child. I had to make my choices on that basis. And there are medications that I take. Thankfully, there's been studies on them. They said, this has been studied for X amount of years in this group. There was no shown side effects to a child, to an unborn child, blah, 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 blah. But you have the choice to continue taking this medication or not. But to force someone to say, not only do we not have any research, we're going to make you take it. I just think is, that is, seriously malpractice.
Yeah.
And if you can get in trouble as a person drinking and purposely taking drugs and stuff while you're pregnant, because you're literally harming that child, like child abuse. Yeah. How do we just, circumvent that and just go on to no, you will do this.
Yeah.
And there's no punishment because we're right and we're 100% right.
Because we're the lawmakers.
Yeah.
And so we're making the law. As if in the past there hasn't been laws that were made that were obviously immoral. But we're in codified in law, So yeah, I couldn't agree more. Anyone who's taking as unbiased a look at this as is possible, we're all in it, but you can still step out and look at it as reasonably as possible from wherever you're at, can see that that it is unreasonable and anti-science to be pressing and pushing this on humanity at large.
Agreed.
It is. And if it was, I more align myself with the right, although less and less the more further right they go. I align
Absolutely.
myself more with the middle.
Same.
At this point, but it used to be the right. And now I see that they're, both.
Extreme.
Why don't we just, this is ridiculous on both sides. We're not going to start a civil war over this, but it's unreasonable, illogical, full of very unsound arguments, and ultimately, in my opinion, counter to the spirit of science, what they've been doing, quote unquote, in the name of science.
Right.
And so I'm just not willing to play into that. I'm not willing to be bullied into it. I'm not willing to be persuaded into it. I'm not willing to be coaxed into it. I'm not willing to be forced into it.
Mm-hmm. I think, it kind of feels like most people are just like, we are where we are. I feel the way I feel. And I, myself, feel just the same way you do. It's just like, it is what it is.
Yeah.
So let's just move forward here, because the lines have been drawn. Everyone has made their choice, and it is what it is.
Yeah.
So now we got to move on as a society and get along with where we're at and just keep going.
I support your social distancing if that's what you want. I support you wearing your mask if that's what you want. I support you getting the 15th booster shot if that's what you want to fucking do for the Delta, Omicron, Rainbow variant. And I support all that,
Go for it.
That's fine. Again, the vaccine does not prevent you from spreading it. As a matter of fact, because you don't show symptoms and you don't feel bad, you just go about your day spreading it around. You just feel good spreading it. Whereas me, I'm self. Man, I don't feel good. I'm going to stay at home. We're just COVID exhausted. But for now, let's just relax and understand that the hypocrisy of me having to walk into a place of business with a mask, but once I sit down, I can take it off, is ridiculous. And we look stupid. So I'm just saying, let's move on.
I just agreed. The absurdity of it. And unfortunately, we're in a state where there's blue controlled, and so they're still making us use masks here. I feel it's insanity too. I have to wear my mask. Once I sit down, I can take it off. Once I stand up, it must be put on because I could kill somebody. But once I sit back down, I'm all right. No one's going to die. And the fact that people buy into that, thinking it's saving lives, it's like beyond mind-boggling to me. It's like, I don't even know how to describe. It befuddles me.
Yeah.
Because I'm just
befuddled.
Like, I'm just like, how do you come to those conclusions? Like, I want to know. I want to know what dots you're connecting there, because like I'm looking at this and I'm like, absolutely not. That puzzle piece does not fit. And they're like, oh, it does. And it makes perfect sense. And I'm like, explain. Yeah.
If you look, here's what I believe someone would say, right? Remember to, 2 weeks or whatever to flatten the curve. It feels like 14 years ago now. We're still wearing this shit.
Because we're already years into it.
So they're like, listen, you're all going to get it. Everyone's going to get it. This is about slowing down the spread so that we don't overwhelm, the system and stuff like that. And so someone might say, listen, it's not about not getting it. It's about slowing the spread. All right, we're 2 years into this. We've all probably had a good old round or two of it. Mm-hmm. We've all been exposed one way or another. At this point, it's just like, listen, we know what it is. We know that the majority of people who get it aren't going to have to go to the hospital. And you know why the hospitals are overwhelmed or whatever? Because they have like 15 fucking rooms. That's why. All right, they have 15 fucking rooms, like rooms where you actually put people with COVID. So when they're like, we're at 100%. Okay, so you have 15 people. Or let's be real, let's say it's 100.
Yeah.
But you serve a community of 50,000. You're overwhelmed. We're overwhelmed during flu season. We just understand that it's the flu.
Right.
And that what you do is you stay home. And now 1 out of every 1,000 people who get it has this adverse reaction, and they got to go to the hospital and get put on a vent or whatever. We get it. It's a flu. Mm-hmm. It's a bad flu. Mm-hmm. Let's go.
It really is. And I'm going to tell you why it's not just us saying this. If you talk to a doctor and you tell them, like, I have these symptoms, they'll go, you have COVID. You need to stay home. Mm-hmm. Like, okay, well, what do I need to take? Mucinex and ibuprofen. That is literally 100% what was prescribed after saying you have COVID. Mm-hmm. So if COVID managed, whatever, you can survive COVID with Mucinex and ibuprofen, why are we shutting down our economy and our world? Just like much less our economy. Why is the world getting shut down when we can service this with Mucinex and ibuprofen.
Yeah.
This is a doctor's prescription on how to deal with COVID.
You know what? You know what an analogy that comes to my mind about what we did to ourselves with this whole COVID situation? It's like, imagine someone hitting you in the head with a decent sized stick, right? Like, just hit you. You're like, oh my God, that hurt, dude. It's like we slowed the hit down so that we're feeling every single penetrating millimeter into our face, and it really hurts. And we're extending. We're allowing ourselves to we're prolonging the pain and making sure that we can focus on it. You know, they should be like, listen, none of you are getting this vaccine because now you're just spreading it and you don't know it because you're all feeling good. You know, I remember on the news, CBS News, they just kept showing the same QuadCon that they had designated for the dead bodies, and it was one, and that was sad, and that was gross,
yeah.
and I'm sorry, that was horrible,
That's really awful.
That's bad. But it was the one QuadCon they showed every day for like a month about how we don't have room for the bodies. It's just like people were just dropping dead in the street and shit. And it was like they hyped it up so much. And now we're just nice and good and divided and developed an us-them mentality and, you know, just phenomenal job.
Well
but
groomed.
You can only go so far with what the media is saying and what's being portrayed to the people before you're saying, listen, no more bullshit. No more blaming it on things. Stop and think for a second. As soberly as possible, is what we're doing the best thing? Is there a better way to go about it? If we embrace the uncertainty that is life and understand that we're not going to live forever and think about the ramifications of the things we're putting into place and how it's going to play on the generations that follow us, are we doing the best thing? I don't care what the latest quote-unquote expert said. Stop and think is what we're doing the best thing.
I agree.
Okay.
Absolutely agree. It's so insane.
Just putting that cherry on top.
All right. Well, if you have something you'd like to tell us, go ahead and leave it in the comments.
Or don't. You can do that.
Thanks for listening.
Yep.
Bye.
Bye.